So the project at hand today is going to be doing some garage storage. I'm going to be trying to fill that empty wall behind me with some pegboard and shelves and just making some overall improvements. So stick around and you'll see me go from this to this. And we're going to be using some pegboard, some furrings, and some Tapcons to get the bulk of this started. And I'm going to do some upgrades to this old media cabinet turned workbench. So I'm going to put some shelves along the side and some wire baskets up here for the dog toys. So the first thing I'm going to do is mount the furring to the pegboard. So if I was working on a wooden wall, stick framing, I would put the furring up first and then the pegboard on top of the furring. But since I'm mounting to concrete and I want my Tapcons to go through the pegboard and then through the furring into the concrete, I'm going to mount the furring to the back of the pegboard and then put the whole assembly up. And I think that's going to be easier for me in this case. So my first step here is to use these number 8 3/4 inch long lath screws to hold the pegboard to the furring. I'm doing the top and bottom with the full 8-foot pieces, and then I'm going to fit the verticals in 16 on center. The horizontal pieces weren't perfectly straight, so I opted to measure each vertical and then cut them to fit. Pretty straightforward process, just measure, mark, and cut. After this, it was just driving a lot of screws. I did 5 screws on each vertical, and I have 7 verticals, so it was just rinse and repeat. The most time-consuming part of this process was really just matching each row, so I didn't have to worry about something not being in line when it was finally put up on the wall. And here, I'm not just making funny faces while concentrating. I am pre-marking where all of the shelf bracket holes are going to be. This way I can pre-drill them, so I can just use the masonry bit when it's on the wall and I don't have to try and drill through the furring. And now it's time to pre-drill 3 holes for each of the 7 shelf brackets. And this is where prep work pays off. So I have holes for the Tapcons pre-drilled partway down the sheet, and we have shimmed the 2 milk crates there we're using to help stage the pegboard. And we had all the tools ready, so we put the level up, checked that our shims were still level, and then got the masonry drill out. Pre-drilled for the Tapcon, and then drove the Tapcons in the wall, so it was up and at least partially secured within just a couple of minutes and no running for tools. So now that I've probably said Tapcon about 10 times, I should probably tell you what they are. They are a masonry screw. The ones that I am using are 1 3/4 inches long, and they are 3/16 in diameter. So what I'm doing is pre-drilling with a 5/32 drill bit into the concrete. And that's going to give me the minimum embedment that's listed here of about 1 inch. And that's going to give me nearly 720 pounds of shear strength per Tapcon. In total, I'm going to put 3 in each shelf bracket and then 3 additional ones in each vertical, which is going to give me 42 Tapcons in the total sheet. And in total, that's going to be over 30,000 pounds of shear strength, which is way more than I'm ever going to hang on the pegboard, but it's more or less just keeping everything stable. I don't want one corner of the pegboard being wobbly. So this was a pretty repetitive task, so you guys can benefit from all the quick cuts here. Basically, it's drill 3 holes per and drive the Tapcons times 7 shelf brackets. And you're going to see me use a piece of furring to get the top of the shelf bracket even with the top of the furring, so when we go to put the shelf on top later, everything will be nice and flush. So here my help had gone home for the evening, so I decided to test out my pocket hole jig here. This is my first experience with it, and I thought it was pretty handy. I am drilling a couple of pocket holes into some scrap wood to firm up the back of my media cabinet here. So it was a little wobbly when I was standing on it, and I thought it would benefit from this in the long term. Next, I am marking and measuring for a shelf. So if your dogs are anything like mine, they like to investigate whatever's in the trash can. So I wanted it off the top of the cabinet, but still up in the air so they can't go fishing. And this simple shelf seems to get the job done for that. I used a scrap 3/4 inch piece of plywood and some inexpensive shelf brackets for this. Next is an upgrade for the dogs, so they don't have to try and jump up on the bench to grab their toys. I've got just a couple of small wire baskets on clearance here, and I'm using the same screws I used on the pegboard to mount these to the side of the cabinet. And fortunately for me, these are doggy approved. Now it's time for some electrical, so I am drilling for a wall-mounted box here over to an existing box, and then using a driveway stake to push a pull string, and then inevitably using the pull string to pull the 14-2 wire through, so we can have a box which will supply power for lights and an outlet over by the pegboard. So since this is a garage, it's nothing fancy. It is a metal box, and just driving one screw in one side, getting it level, and then setting the second screw. Between the lower box, which is going to have power and a switch, and the upper box, which is going to be a switched outlet for the lights, we're just doing a simple piece of conduit. I don't have too many pointers on doing the actual wiring portion. I always like to seek some guidance and get some help with this piece, so if you're unsure, I would say seek a professional. And here I am setting up to cut a piece of plywood to make the shelf. So I am using a scrap piece of flooring from when I built the house. These two workmates are the same height, so it made a pretty good work surface, using a level here as a straight edge, and then just making the cut. We threw two 45-pound plates up on the workmates there to help keep the sheet stable, cross-cut at the length, and then did some 45s on the corners just to class it up a little bit, and then sanded everything, make it nice and smooth for whenever I'm putting something up there. Now, something I discovered while doing my project was that the concrete wall wasn't flat, so it pulled some of the shelf brackets out of level, and I ended up shimming the top of two of the brackets to make sure that the shelf wasn't all wonky. So if you do the same thing and mount pegboard to a concrete wall, just keep an eye out for that. So here I am dry positioning the lights here and just getting a rough idea where I want them on the shelf front to back. And then I mark for the keystones with a combination square in the 4 mounting locations, and then measuring from the ends. That way they'll be centered on the shelf. So after making some more heavily concentrating faces, I adjust the screws so the keystones will be nice and tight, and then snap the lights into position. After that, it's just all cable management to make everything look nice and pretty. In time for a few more odds and ends. Here I'm setting a screw so I can hang a thermometer back up in the garage. So I've got this old toolbox top tray that would fit perfect on the pegboard if I've got one more of these holes drilled in the bottom of the tray. Then it'll fit over these brackets real nice and hold all my masonry tools. So I've only got a handful of items put up right now, just kind of gloves and some miscellaneous tools, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to live with this for a little bit and slowly fill it up with things I find useful that I want every day, and I will show you guys an update on this in a couple weeks. So if you guys like this and you found it useful, definitely leave me a comment, tell me about your own projects or what you found useful here. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video.